welcome to the show, Rod. I appreciate you for coming on. This is going to be a lot of fun. You're the first person since Shola. So just a quick story. So Shola and I have gone back like almost 20 years when I founded Red Zone. We got involved super early working together when his company with 30 employees. And Martine is the CEO of his company. And Martine Rosenblatt is one of the first founders of Sirius. And then she went and founded the United Therapeutics, and they print. They're basically they're in the process of building lungs, 3D printing lung tissue, and so Shola, as you might imagine, he's quite a thinker, and he was a CIO there for many years, and now has moved into the chief innovation role. Well, he pointed me to Singularity University, and he said, "You got to go to the executive program there." And so I immediately jumped on the executive program at Singularity. And then you're the first person since then, 6 years ago, that has been through the executive program.
I mean, Singularity is you probably see my books back there. I mean, I'm a fan ever since I read, the Singularity is near, and the whole premise, especially for an IT executive, has to resonate with you, right? Everything grows exponentially because of the introduction of technology. So a big fan, and I really enjoy our talks about it, and I hope they go deeper and further and exponentially better.
Yeah. So for everybody listening, that book that Robert just mentioned is by Ray Kurzweil, who's one of the biggest polymath thinkers about, when we have, he thinks into the future and has been remarkably right. So, and then Peter Diamandis is co-founder of Singularity, which he's written a series of books as well. But let me introduce you to the program today, to my guest. So currently, Rob is the Vice President of Global Digital Solutions. We can talk about that rebranding to that name, which I love. Rob's a 30-year digital transformation veteran working across multiple industries, including finance, manufacturing, education, marketing, and healthcare. And you have been working with business architecture as a digital business partner with your company through transformational changes and leveraging technologies to make the business better and really help them grow exponentially. You've been with Precipart, which I love to talk about, for over 4 years. And Precipart was very, very interesting. I know it has Swiss DNA and Swiss roots, which probably has an interesting story in and of itself. Has been making things possible since 1846, when the Swiss ancestors of Precipart invented the first mechanical turning machine, which is cool. And as a leading global contract manufacturer, creating full end-to-end instruments in the medical technology and working with customers in aerospace and the space industry. And your customers lead their categories in these vertical marketplace. So did I do the introduction justice to what your role is?
You did, and I appreciate that, Bill.
Okay. You know what? It's the part that everybody hates the most, is hearing their name talk so much, but it's really important. I want the guests to understand conversations that you've had and that we've had, and the role you play. And sort of, I think part of what the show is, it's about the strategy, innovation, leadership, and the security, and the really important parts of the job. But I also think about the mindset. I call it 10X, because we need to have a mindset shift. And that's what I love with the innovation conversations we've had, is really it's helped kind of makes the brain wider in thinking. So let's talk about what I love is the role of the CIO moving forward. You have this unique way of talking about what I find is the Chief Execution Officer. Maybe you can talk about that for a minute or two.
Sure. So it's been a long time in the making, but and it's not to disrespect my career at all, right? The role of the CIO is a critical one to any organization, or CTO, or whatever you want to call it, right? But it stemmed. I got the idea many years ago from attending these conferences and roundtables and having these conversations with other leaders. And the complaint was, do you report to the CEO? Do you report to the CFO? How does your role play into the strategy of an organization? And I listened. I don't remember whether it was I read something or I listened to something, but and on one of your mastermind sessions recently, which are instrumental to my growth as well, the comment came back up again where it said, the role of what we do in our compensation should be directly tied to the organization and the business. And when I heard that first, maybe it was 10, 15 years ago, I thought, well, that's fantastic, right? That's where we show value. And the CIOs that kept saying, I deserve a seat at the table, were saying that because they were technologists. Now, for the other 95% of us that don't have technology as a product for organizations, we have to provide value. And the value comes from not being commodity driven. My company can go buy someone or pay for someone to bring a computer from our data center to someone's desk when it breaks. That's not the value that I need to deliver. The value I need to deliver, which I've adopted the definition of digital transformation being business transformation using technology as a disruptor. So my team, we need to learn the business nearly as much as the business knows the business so we can provide value. But it comes with other things, right? That chief execution officer comes with the other practices of IT, right? The business intelligence, right? The analytics, the project management, the things that we take for granted as part of being IT, but really lend value to the business. But it also comes with some growth, right? We have to leverage our emotional intelligence. We can't just say we deserve that role. We need to earn that role. It has to come with trust. We need to say we're going to deliver something and actually deliver it, and not just the things people don't see, like email and voicemail, that if it breaks we get in trouble, right? Or payroll, if it doesn't run we get in a lot of trouble. But if we say we're going to deliver on a project, we got to deliver on a project.
Yeah.
Even taking it even a step further, on a recent podcast you did with Bob, and I don't want to ruin his name, but Bob Facto.
Bob Facto, yep.
Bob Facto talking about identifying value, what's the ROI in what we deliver, right? Those are all things that I think add additional value and help us be that chief execution officer, meaning executing on the business strategy, not the technology strategy.
Yeah.
Using technology, but executing on the skills we have to provide value to the business.
And what I love about that word execution, and I think, the metaphor, I think the CIO is a metaphor. It's a because it comes in a lot of titles in a business, because you can be VP of IT, director of IT, you can be senior VP of IT. It is a long litany line of what but essentially as a metaphor, we talk about the CIO as the API of the business. And for a lot of the listeners, they'll understand what that means. But I also say the CIO is the CEO of the future. Now, I also believe that's a metaphor, but it's a meritocracy. And I love what you talk about execution officer, because it gives someone a kind of a mental framework of execution is action, and it's results, and it's meritocracy. If some of the masterminds we've been in, people are like, I deserve a seat at the table. Well, that's not really the case. We don't deserve it. We actually have to earn it.
Right. And when you earn it, you get more than a seat, you get that voice. And that voice is the most important part, right? Because they are so involved in their everyday, they don't see that value that they have can be grown exponentially with the relationship that we're building with them. And the other component of this chief execution role is really leveraging those internal and external relationships that are critical to succeeding, to our success and the business's success.
So you talked about this, and I know we've talked about it in the mastermind a lot, is the role of mentors. And you and I, when we were talking prior to this, you talked about the role of relationships, and you kind of broke them into buckets like external relationships and internal. And you said that's been pretty pivotal to you. Was that something you came up with natively, or did you have a coach help you with that? How did you come to the realization that relationships and networking is one of the most important things?
So it came to me through forced learning, I guess. Ultimately, I actually had a boss mentor who nominated me to go to join the Society for Information Management, SIM, and nominating for the Regional Leadership Forum, which was wonderful. And I got to go through year-long training and networking with some really great people and meeting some great leaders, and a wonderful experience. But from there, the desire to network with peers and learn from them became important to me. And I hired a coach. My coach, Pete Cafarcio, is the one who actually put me down this path of the chief execution officer.
Okay.
Pete said, follow your heart, follow your passion, and leverage me. And when I was looking for my next role, this role at Precipart, he said, stop looking for the role of the CIO and start looking for the role where they let you live that passion. And to the true testament of Precipart, they do, right? The leadership here from our owner, Oliver Lobster, our COO, Lloyd Miller, everybody here, at every level of the organization, they embrace what I try to do here, right? It's not tell IT to go fix our computer. They're like, hey, let's call digital. We have a problem. Let's identify the problem together. Let's come up with a solution and let's bring it in together. And it's taken us time to get there, but building those internal relationships. And for your listeners who are here in New York, they might get this. For anyone who's ever seen a TV show of the kind, they treat me as, he's one of us. I walk into a room, hey, he's one of us. The trust is there automatically because I've taken the time to prove it, right? And with success,
you've proven it in the hardest area of the country to prove it, in New York, right?
In New York, right? But you prove it with your failures too, right? It's easy to prove with successes, but it's much more difficult to prove and say, listen, I didn't do so well here. Here's why. Here's what we'll do after. And that honesty helps build that trust and that partnership, what makes my relationship internally be successful.
Yeah.
Pete's not my only mentor outside of here. There's been so many, and so I'm going to use you an example, Bill. But as you know, I ran into a little problem where we needed some expertise outside of my organization. We were running some programs over a weekend, and we ran into a roadblock. We weren't sure about our results, and I called you, right? And you probably weren't the right person to call in your organization, but I called you because I could, and you were able to put me in touch with the right people, and your people called my people, and you were able to confirm our results. And I was able to go to sleep that night and not make it an all weekend thing and try to figure out what if we had security issues, which thankfully we didn't. And thankfully you were there to leverage that. But my, company, which is a relatively large company, but we're still a mid-sized company.
Yeah.
I don't have a different size on a number of systems that some of my peers might when they're a multi-billion-dollar company, just different amount of data or different amount of users, but I still have these systems to manage, but not the number of resources. So, these relationships like with you and other vendors we work with and partners that really help me be successful and continue to build that trust with my business partners here within the organization.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You talked about relationships and partnerships and I think it's really practical. It's like a CFO. Again, it's a very mature position in the scheme of things for American business versus the role of the CIO is much newer and in just linear time. That maybe in 1994, 5, 6 is when the CIO position was invented. CFO goes back hundreds of years. And so the CFO is very used to outsourcing accounts payable or receivable or tax filing or payroll services. Yeah, and marketing is very used to picking and choosing different collaboration partners inside and outside the four walls of a business. And I really look at the CIO, and really I just look at our role as in a baseball. The pitcher is throwing the ball. There's a catcher there, but does the catcher catch every ball? No, the catcher, sometimes you need a backstop. And so I just look at us as a backstop for the CIO, make sure the ball doesn't get out of play. Like we know there's going to be mistakes made. That's part of making sure that you've got like a virtual and a partner to make sure the ball doesn't get out of the park. And I think that's what we're always looking for in business. But I think the CIO role, from the partnerships perspective, is can you sleep at night? Meaning, does the ball just go out of play, or do you have someone there that can make sure and validate? Oh no, we're good. We can keep playing ball here.
Well, that role, that backstop helps me where also I can't afford to spend my time, right? So the where you guys leverage your knowledge in security and our defense, I spend more time learning what my business is doing. How we identifying our costs, or how we manufacture our products, or maybe I'm looking at new technologies and how I'll enhance our future projects using things like AI or other things to make our future products better. And that's where the value that I can bring to the organization by having that business knowledge and bringing it with technology. But if I spend more time learning, what new security regulations I have to follow, or what's the latest, greatest server or whatever, I'm not spending the time I need to learn the business and enhance that, where my partners and the relationship we have with you guys, you help me do that better.
Yeah. It's and part of the co-management of this, the CFO doesn't relinquish their entire team. They'll probably have a controller, maybe several accounting professionals, and just because, but the native knowledge of the business is not the native knowledge of the accounting processes, how that uniquely impacts the business from an accounting perspective. They're not losing that, but getting supplemental help to help them, I think is smart, because it's a fast moving environment with accounting. The same thing with security. It's moving so fast that the impact of Tom Brady putting 7 touchdowns on the board is great, as long as someone doesn't put 8 against him. Right. And so, I mean, from the CIO perspective, it's great. We want to align with offense, but we just got to make sure that that we have score more points than we're losing. And so it's great to see you think that way. One of the things I have a little bit of a background echo. Is this on your side? Is it?
I don't hear it on my side.
Okay. I think it just went away. From the relationship point of view, when you were building, did your coach? So I find often that people don't. You're in the probably 10% that have actually reached out to a business coach for help, and that does take a certain amount of humility to begin with. To actually, like, we're so used to having coaches in sports. We're so used to having coaches for a lot of disciplines. I find that I don't run into many CIOs who have reached out to coaches in the classic sense. And, some people like have therapists that, might coddle them and help them and things like that. And then you have like people that are around you that really push you to the next level. How do you look at your coaching relationships between like the therapy end of the spectrum versus someone that's going to kind of really push you and kick you in the butt a little bit? How did that come together for you?
So my coach is both, right? Got me through the emotional intelligence training, and that was a great perspective of looking at who I am and what I know, and really understanding what my strengths are and how to leverage them, and being honest with myself. But he also kicked me in the butt from my career perspective. He says, this is what you do well, this is what you don't do well. But it's not only him, it's my full cabinet, right? It's the 8 or so people that I keep around me that I can pick up the phone and call at any time if I'm having an issue here on, hey, how do I handle this situation, or how do I handle that situation? And,
okay.
And some are really great minds, and it's not my only coach. It's not only my coach, but a baseball player needs a coach, not a head coach, but their Jeter had a shortstop coach, and everyone has a batting coach, and they have their specialties. It doesn't make him any less of a great ball player. It just makes him want to improve in his area. So I guess the emotional intelligence me says, that coach and that cabinet that I have that supports me are my friends. They're friends that help my knowledge grow. And I think spending so many years working as a technologist and a leader in higher education really emphasized the true component of education as part of my leadership goals as well, right? To continue to learn from other people around me who are way, way smarter than me, to teach me so I can be better, and the things that I do better is important. And ironically, talking about this podcast with my CEO last night, Oliver Lopchi, said to me, he says, if I asked you if you're a good singer, would you say yes or no? And I said, no, I'd be horrible. And he told me, no, you just haven't learned how to sing yet. And I'm going to send you a book. And I get excited because this book is now something I want to read and find out, how I could learn, right? And it's about that education, lifelong learning. And as technologists, I think we owe it to ourselves, right? Singularity teaches us that the pace of technology grows so fast. If we're not learning, or at least surrounding ourselves with people who know and are learning, then we will outgrow our roles. Our roles will outgrow us, and that becomes a worry for our industry, because then how do we keep up with the need and demand?
Yeah, it's interesting because you need not only, and I've looked at this even from my role as an entrepreneur, that because I look at the CIO as the internal entrepreneur within the business, because literally the CIO understands all of the data points, all of the capabilities. If they're really good, they understand how to solve them all if they were given infinite budget. So technically they're an internal entrepreneur if they had that DNA, But I look at like the board that I formed makes me nervous. Like I'm actually nervous talking to my board because I chose them for that reason. Like I don't want to be the smartest person. So I chose them because they push me a little bit. But then it's incumbent upon me to make sure I have a great virtual team, people that I can pull to help me get things done, my internal staff and the people outside my 4 walls that contractually it just makes more sense to buy them on a contract or an SOW or a managed basis. And so if you your cabinet is above you, metaphorically speaking, is that how you've kind of structured it in your mind?
So my cabinet is so it's interesting, but so there are different areas where I get my support from, right? I did form a digital advisory board here at Precipart, where there are trusted advisors within here at different levels of the organization. And they're here where I talk to about, here, we're going to roll out a new SLAs, or, we didn't do this so well, where can we do better? And I'm thinking about this and working with the business, and, hey, you didn't include digital in that business process. Can we be part of? So I have that advisory board here. I have my cabinet, which I refer to as, people that don't work here that I've met throughout my career and my life, that I find titans of industry, and that will, for instance, Christopher Bernard, who is the one who found this opportunity for me, who is on the SIM members and transition call every Thursday, who he's there to help people and guide them on getting new jobs. And, he's there helping me build my elevator pitch. Or I still talk to my coach, Pete, and, he pushes me to follow my passion. Or, Rick Diana, who's the quintessential networker, and he's forming a new role on being an agent for guys like me to help them find jobs rather than being a recruiter. He'll help you brand you and your career for, the guys who aren't outgoing and don't know how to network well. And that's my cabinet. But I'm also lucky to have, while it's a small staff, they're dedicated. So they didn't know today we had our staff meeting, and I had a conflict meeting, and I called one of the junior members of my team who operates as he's a 30-year veteran, and it's his first job out of college. And I said, hey, I'm not going to the staff meeting today. Do you want to run it? And I think we should talk about what's our social media presence and how we're going to talk about rolling analytics and digital to a social media platform to speak to our up and coming new employees in the future. He's like, hey, I'll do that. And that's great. And then he put an appointment on my calendar for this evening to talk about it. And I'm lucky to have a lot of great people around me here that really embrace my vision of what I want to do here and make it part of their own and go with it. And that's the people I surround myself with. And I've been lucky enough to have all those areas of influence, support, those guys that push me. But I guess when they push me, my desire to go learn more and do more is what pushes me and keeps me from being afraid, I guess.
Yeah.
Sometimes the adrenaline, I should be afraid, but I just go, I guess. And that adrenaline helps.
No, that's great. So how with your team right now, how does it, and your coach in particular, and the gentleman Pete, why did he push you down the heart route? And I think you used the word heart and passion. Like, why was that so important to him to convey to you? And then how do you make that link every single day? Like because it's a hard job. Like there's a lot of stuff coming at you, and quickly you can go into default, which is kind of brute force. It's more like less heart, less passion, more like let's just get it done. How do you keep that balance there?
Right. So it's Pete Carfaccio, and he was right to push me, because every conversation we had was less and less my passion about rolling out large-scale ERPs for no reason or CRMs for no reason. And it was all about my frustration with, he has this concept about the breakdown we have with executives moving from role to role, right? If you, again, SIM transition call, if you join the call, Joe Puglisi is going to say, you start looking for your next role the second you start your current role. And Pete has a similar concept where he says, the process is broken. You're not getting jobs by your resume. You're getting jobs by networking and people who understand what you do. And my passion wasn't on my resume. My passion was on what I do and the people I work with and delivering a solution to the business, not about the technology. And luckily, when I interviewed here, and Paul Pacelli was my first interview, I guess when he listens to this, he's going to, hopefully I don't get in trouble for sharing the story, but he sits down and he looks at my resume and he says, what's your biggest accomplishment? And then there was a pause and he says, besides your resume. And I said, it's not about my resume, because it's not what's on there. It's about the people that helped accomplish those things on my resume. I didn't do that. A group of people did that with me. What's important is what we delivered to those people and what was received by them. And that's where the conversation started. And that's when I knew that Paul was receptive, and Rich and Lloyd, and they were receptive to this conversation. And our current CEO wasn't our CEO at the time. Oliver was working somewhere else. It was Edward Lobsher. And our first meeting, he was an old veteran from IBM, was an IBM salesman and sold Mapix before he took over this business. And he said to me at my first strategy meeting with him, he says, I've been waiting for something like this for many years here. And then I knew that Precipart was the type of company that appreciated the fact that driving technology towards the business need and not technology for the sake of technology was important to me. It was important to them. And it's been a great run here where we've delivered some real powerful solutions that the business uses. I still want a little better adoption at times, but beggars can't be choosy, and it's a great relationship we have. So time will get that adoption, and we'll roll out newer things.
Do you ever take it down to the role of what Precipart's customers are in, what the impact is for the actual customer itself? I know the reason I bring this up is I just was on an interview before this with a book author, and he runs an innovation software development company, and they actually focus on the impact of their software all the way down to the customer that's experiencing their product or their deployment all the way back, and they literally measure it and go down to the customer level to see what the impact of the technology that was delivered to the business. And I was wondering if you ever thought about it from that level.
So stepping off of any script we talked about, mind you, we haven't prepped this conversation at all. And I'm really, really happy you asked, because we just have a great use case on how that just literally just happened.
Really? Okay.
I have an employee, Ian Haley. He's worked at Precipart for 21 years now. But Ian worked in engineering for almost 18 years of his career, 17 years of his career here. And looking for a manager for the application services group, I couldn't find one, because we're an Infor shop running Infor FSA. And I couldn't find someone local that knew our business, knew manufacturing, but he had an affinity to teach himself programming, development. And I went to the COO there and I asked him, can I solicit Ian? And he said, yes. So Ian came over here, and he's my partner here now, and he does a fantastic job. So we had a customer who was looking at our capacity, and we were having difficulty getting the information over to him. So Ian went into the customer meetings with the head of manufacturing, with the head of sales, and he built some analytics for them that changed the relationship. And we use it as an internal case study to prove out the ROI. How much time were you spending getting the information for the customer every week? How many hours was these three people, the three salespeople, spending working on this analytics? And now the customer's getting our reports. And now Ian and Stefan and the sales rep, and they're all collaborating with the customer on what else we could put together for them. Better analytics, better reporting, which of course anyone in IT knows that this is which will be coming soon, which will be our customer portal and some of our vendor supplier portal stuff, right? And it's all coming, but we were a little premature for that, right? We're in that process, and it's in the process of being developed, but we haven't released anything now. We're still months and maybe a year or more away from that. But Ian developed that with our analytics platform and with the customer's voice in conjunction with them. And the customer's real happy. The relationship has turned around, and they're a great customer. We're very customer centric, and I see a lot more of that coming, because Ian and our manufacturing group and our sales group were able to work very closely together, prove value that they brought to the table.
It's also cheaper. It's cheaper to test your ideas rapidly in front of the customer, get their buy-in, versus having to invest in a big framework, $1 million guess. And now you've got some proven feedback to work with, and a proven
ROI need.
Say it again?
Show ROI and need too, right? And you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's where we talked a little bit about kind of the defense role, which is making sure you got some people for your backstop, and certainly your internal team and companies like Red Zone help with that. But then it's great if it frees up time where you can look at the offense capabilities. You can because that's really a design thinking process. It's what's the avatar look like, and what's their pain, and what's their problem, and sitting there and then reverse engineering that into a solution that actually solves something real for them.
Right.
That's great.
And be able to get the instant feedback from them and the value really helped my team see that we are delivering something, right? A lot of times IT is kept in the back office, right? I rebranded us so we can create that relationship with the business and have that forward-facing thing with our internal customers. That's why we call them business partners, not users, right? I think IT and only one other profession I could think in this world called their customers users, right? And the other one isn't as sexy as IT, but we call them business partners. And I think that we now get that exposure to the customers and we see the value we deliver directly. We tell this story a lot in either our internal digital strategy meetings or our status meetings. They see the value, they can resonate with the work they're doing, directly impacts our bottom line. And it really helps my team build that entrepreneurial spirit to go that extra mile to work with the business and provide a solution that helps them.
Yeah, and in that, I think. Do you think? I think one of the things you've talked about as being you have kind of an entrepreneurial DNA. Would you say that you sort of have entrepreneurial tendencies?
I do. It started a long time ago.
Were you did you have like a lemonade stand or like a Kool-Aid stand growing up, or mow lawns? I can imagine you mowing lawns.
So I did, but it's funny. So a long time ago, I started up a company with a customer. Actually, I was working in a consulting firm, and I was running the professional services division of this consulting firm. And I became friendly with one of the CIOs of the company we were supporting. And when I left that consulting firm and he left, we started this business together. And we were working on this business, and there was a movie that came out, and hopefully many of the users that are closer to my age remember a movie called Startup.com. It came out in about 2002, and I said to my partner, I said, those guys did it right. They built this website to provide government services, and it was easy and efficient, and they got this funding, and we need to do the same thing. So I ended up reaching out to Tom Herman, who was one of the stars of the movie, and within days we had dinner with him. And I'm like, Tom, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to be you. I'm going to do all the same things. And Tom said, that's great. What was your first entrepreneurial venture? And I said, this one. And Tom looked at me with a straight face and said, not mine. Mine was when I used to shovel driveways as a kid. And I'm like, well, I shovel driveways. How come I didn't think of that? And I realized I'm not an entrepreneur. I feel like an entrepreneur, but I'm not as good as Tom. But what I realized was I'm having dinner with Tom, and I just saw his movie 2 days ago, and I'm a good networker.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm not a great salesman, and I might be passionate about what I do, but I'm a good networker, and I have a lot to learn from people like Tom and other people. And so I leverage that, and I realize that. So entrepreneurialism is going to be part of everything I do, and I'm going to run every organization I'm lucky enough to be able to manage.
Yeah.
My company, even though it may or may not be. And I'm going to give all of my passion to that. And ironically, when I went to work for Montclair State University as a consultant, one of the business partners, Niven IT, said, it's funny, you've only been here for 3 months, but you believe Montclair Red. Like, I feel like you've worked here forever. And, it's part of the passion I give to the role I have as being entrepreneurial. Yeah. But the working component has always been the underlying theme of where that came from. And Tom is the one who set me down that, even though I had that entrepreneurial spirit, the power of networking was much stronger within me.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is that I call it entrepreneur, like an internal entrepreneur within a company. I believe that every CEO should be surrounded by people that either want their job or have the capability to have their job. And your team listening to this is going to laugh, but that's what CEOs need, is people that have that DNA. I guarantee you that the number 35 person at Facebook is happy to be the number 35 person at Facebook, because Zuckerberg needed some ninjas around him, right? And he needed people that had that entrepreneur. My second in command here goes, I don't want to be the tip of the spear, but I'll be right behind.
Some of your staff, and they're all very happy in the role they've been and been there for decades, but none of them want to be you. I know that, but they're all happy where they are, and you guys are doing a great job. So I'm happy with the ones I've been working with.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, Rob, I want to give you a final chance here, because we've talked about several different topics. I've got them all kind of up on my little screen here. But is there anything that you were hoping I'd bring up that you were just hoping or that popped into your conscious as I was talking, that you're like hoping I would, that you want to just leave listeners with?
No, I mean, the networking thing's important to me, but the concept of the chief execution officer, I think is it's not, I don't want people to think that it's something I want to change the term CIO into CXO. It's just a mindset that I want, us as technology leaders to realize that technology, unless you work for Facebook or Apple or Microsoft, right? It's not that, right? I'm not selling SAP by design, right? We're a manufacturing company, and there is technology within our products, and many of our products will be primarily technology driven at some point, but my job is to execute on our business strategy, right?
Yeah.
And that with whatever the strategic plan is, whether it's my digital strategy, whether it's manufacturing strategy, sales strategy, I have a say in that. And COVID has proved us that the role that digital or technology plays within an organization is critical. And to be able to be agile and be able to be supportive of that, we have to know what our role is. And being smart enough and in touch with your own feelings and emotions that say, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I have a lot to offer. So let me work with those people who are the smartest in their area. I'll know myself and build something together. So we'll develop your plan, we'll execute your strategy, and I'm going to be your partner. And we're going to walk through that together, and we're going to succeed together. And it's something we can look back on and learn from it as a partnership.
You're really open. You've opened yourself up to allow experts to surround you, and which makes you more powerful. It makes you more effective. It makes you able to execute. And I look at CXO as a metaphor. Chief execution. It's a metaphor for your mindset. And I think for a lot of folks get afraid to open up and network because it challenges their underlying assumptions. It challenges their native biases. And you're willing to sit there and be open to hearing, because the world's changing really, really fast and you need those inputs. But eventually you have to make the decision and move forward and execute, right? But at the same time, you're open, but that you're open and executing to the relationships. And that's what I find really, really cool, and why I wanted you on the show is to share that with people, because that's the mid-market. That's any market, regardless if it's mid-market, small or large.
Well, it's got to be any market. And I tell my kids all the time, life is about the journey, right? It's not important where you're going to go. It's important how you get there. But from my perspective, and I tell my team this all the time, I don't really care how you get there. I really care about where we end up. So if we get there your way or my way, as long as it's on time, within budget, within resources, and ethical, and you get your way, I get there my way, but you feel like you own the solution, then you own it. And I will support it all day long. But it's really about just getting to the right place together. And if your way is different than mine, but we agree on the solution, I'm all for your way too. Let me help you, and I'll take my skill set to the table. And that way I can spend more time in the VR world playing with that a little bit.
Well, listen, hey, Rob, I appreciate you for jumping on this today. This is great. This is going to be a big impact for other CIOs. I'm hoping your staff gets a chance to see it, your coaches. I think this is, it's great that you shared your wisdom today. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate you, and I look forward to our continued relationship. But more importantly, those CIO masterminds are critical. And if this gets out to anyone, they join that too. That'll be better. The more people on that, the better. Well,
it's going to keep rocking people's worlds and keep their mind open and keep, I can't wait for the title of this, Rob. It's going to be how to be a chief execution officer and a CIO.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
All right, bye.